In the bitter fight on the road to 2019, one of the big arsenals that the big two political parties are using is, believe it or not, women's empowerment. Both the Congress and the BJP are out to prove that they are the champions of women's rights. And we saw that just as the monsoon session was starting with Rahul Gandhi's challenge. Bring in the women's reservation bill. The one that his government, the UPA, had introduced in 2008 has lapsed since then, and it used to be something both the BJP and the Congress would agree on, one of those rare things. But this time round, it's fodder for bitter politics between the two parties. So on Monday, if the Congress president asked the Prime Minister to walk the talk on women's empowerment, Law Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad parried by asking the Congress to not just talk of women's bill, but to back the triple talaq legislation and other Muslim reforms like nikah halala as well, if they were serious about women's empowerment. So while the politicians look like they will keep arguing, reality check over the next half hour will do a bit of a stock check. Which party has done more for women? Which party has really put their money where their slogans are? And the way we're going to do it is to take 3 yardsticks that we picked and go through each one with our expert panel of what else? Women politicians, leaving you to decide, the viewer, who comes out best. So the first yardstick, and remember of course that they are going to fight 2019 as one of the main factors, and the sad reality is that there are only 65 women MPs in a house of 536 members, and that's only 12% representation, which is of course abysmal. And that's why in a UN report about women in parliament, India fares less than Bangladesh, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. How's that for regional pride? So for our first yardstick and talking point, we're going to look at, out of the two parties, who gave more tickets to women candidates. After all, how will you get more women in if those gatekeeping won't let them through? Now, if you look at just the last 2 elections, because you needed something to go by, Gujarat and Karnataka. Now in Karnataka, BJP gave just 6 tickets to women. Congress gave 15 out of the 224. Well, that makes Congress look good, but if you look at Gujarat, Congress gave even lesser, just 10 out of 182, and BJP just 12. So we're going to ask our women guests just that. We have Sushmita Dev, MP from the Congress party here in studio. We have Shaina NC, spokesperson of the BJP. And before I get them in, if you look at the next graphics, in the general elections, women only made up 8% of the candidates, and that's why a third of the candidates had to be independents. That's the big talking point over there. Shaina NC, first to you. Why is it that if you look at it, both the Congress and BJP are fighting now? If you look at just this factor, both of you look pretty bad.
Well, I think the reality is that politics is a male-dominated space, and we could all be sitting here and giving justifications of individual parties, but it still sounds like tokenism. We need to move beyond and view it in totality, and if you view it in totality, the kind of tickets given at election time are like tokens. The kind of representation in parliament, which is 11.93%, is lower than that of our neighboring countries, which are supposed to be more regressive or more third world than any other nation. But despite the fact India's largest democracy should have had 33% reservation moons ago, and I'm not going to get into which party should have done what, because that would only be directing this, this debate
you didn't really answer my
BJP
question
versus Congress.
I know.
But I think
that's
that
very
women
generic
in public
as an
life
answer. And that's very generic as an answer. I really want to get through the 3 points.
No, it's
and
not
I would
generic.
really appreciate if
No,
all
it's
my
not.
guests.
Look, if Sunetra, if I want to go into all of that, then I can say that BJP is the only party that has 33% reservation in organizational posts. Me, for example, I'm the only woman treasurer. The party has never even given these posts to women, despite the fact that I would want to say that we need more representation in parliament, which needs to be a consensus. You cannot take away from the fact that Prime Minister Modi, whether it's triple talaq or whether it is really walking the talk vis-a-vis all issues of gender equality, we have completely shown our mettle.
Okay, we've got your answer in that. Sushmita Dev, I would really appreciate if you talk about, we'll go through all of those points. You'll get Shaina NC and you, and we'll also have Mahua Moitra from the Trinamool Congress joining us in just a bit. We'll let you make the larger points. But if we just go by the first yardstick of who gives more tickets, it looks like you and the BJP do as badly as each other.
Yeah, I think I cannot dispute what you have on record, because that's what happened in Gujarat, Karnataka or any other state that goes to election. You see, affirmative action, when we talk about it, is naturally required where things are not happening in its ordinary course. That's why the need for reservation, that's the basis. So, the important point is that the BJP manifesto expressed the fact that they're committed to 33% reservation in assemblies and Lok Sabha, and whether we like it or not, it's a historical mandate. This government has the majority. So the question is, all the set of facts that are in front of us, we see no reason why this government shouldn't bring it, and add to that the major opposition party is going to stand by them. So there's nothing standing in the way.
There's nothing standing in the way, and I wonder if we can go across to well, we will go across to her in just a bit.
Maybe you should ask them to unconditionally, unequivocally also support triple talaq and nikah halala. I mean, the fact that you have
what's interesting
that
is,
you're talking about,
we began,
that where you
Shaina NC, we began a show with just that.
Objections. You have a complete
I wanted this to be a very constructive debate so that people can see the good things that you all have done as well. Shaina NC, 1 second, let me just finish. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this is, we can't go.
Governments also had the opportunity.
No, Shaina NC, 1 second, sorry.
If you don't have the political will, you cannot do it.
I'm sorry, I will have to interrupt you just to say that, we want our viewers to get a full sense of what we're talking about. So we heard both your answers. And what's clear is that you both accept the numbers that we've shown, that both the Congress and the BJP weren't able to give that many tickets. Now we have Mahua Moitra, the third party, Trinamool Congress, which is of course, as we all know, led by a woman leader, Mamata Banerjee's party, and they're very proud about the fact that they are the only party which has more than 33%. They have 35% women MPs in parliament. Mahua Moitra, while that is credit-worthy, what is interesting is if we look at the Trinamool candidates, it really fielded very few candidates in the elections over there. In the candidate game, they only gave about 46 candidates out of the entire total of all the assembly seats in Bengal. The 294, out of 294, only 46 candidates. So when you look about candidates, you weren't really fielding that many. So weren't you in the same position as the BJP and the Congress in that?
No, not really, because if you look at us, there are 3 tiers, right? You have the Panchayat tier, you then have the Assembly, and then you have the Lok Sabha. Now, the Women's Reservation Bill is about the Lok Sabha. If you look at the Panchayat, Bengal is among the first. We have got 50% reservation and 50% at the lowest levels in the Zilla Parishad, in the Panchayat Samiti and in the Gram Panchayats. If you look at Parliament, we are ahead of everybody. We've got about 35% in Parliament. In terms of the Assembly, we have about 12%. In the last Assembly, we were leaders. In this Assembly, I think we're in the 3rd place. Andhra Pradesh, I think, is #1, and then someone else and us. So yes, that is something that we will get to, but I think we're still doing better than anybody else. And as far as the Lok Sabha and reservation is concerned, that we are for the Women's Reservation Bill, but we didn't need a Women's Reservation Bill to tell us what the right thing to do is. And I think that's what's important. You don't always need legislation to bring about something that is staring at you so hard in the face. And we certainly didn't need it, and I think it's time other people woke up and said, yes, of course we need this bill, but you don't really need a bill to do something which is the right thing. So I think we've done it, and it's high time everyone else did it as well.
High time everyone else did it. So here's the question to both Shaina NC, and to you, Sushmita Dev. And I would really appreciate, because there's so much ground to cover, if you just give me less than a minute answers. The question is there a move now? You know, if the BJP and the Congress with the numbers together, you can pass this bill. What is stopping both parties? Is it the triple talaq is something that you also supported? So if the law minister says, come support us also on all the other women reform bills, why can't you do that?
It's very simple. I wish the Bharatiya Janata Party in their 2000 manifesto had said that their commitment for 33% is conditional. Today they are saying pass the triple talaq bill. Let me put it on record. We are not against the bill.
Okay.
We have asked for 2 amendments, and both the amendments are amounting to even bigger reform for Muslim women. One being maintenance for them, and to answer the question that where it's a non-bailable cognizable offence, the woman has the custody of the kids, how is she going to maintain herself? So to say that we are opposing triple talaq bill is equal to anti-woman doesn't make sense, because you have to look at our reasons.
Okay.
And there's no reason why Prime Minister should shy away from giving a corpus fund.
Okay, before I go to Shaina NC, and I want to go across to her, let's just bring the second yardstick up. When we look at women and empowering women and what our politicians and the government is doing for that, the second yardstick is, let's look at the figures now to who put women in decision-making roles more. Is it more the BJP or the Congress in their thing? Now, let's look at the BJP's record. They've got 1 woman in the parliamentary board, but they've got 2 women, and that's something that the government has been very proud about, and it gave the nation a lot of pride as well, that they got 2 women in the CCS, the Cabinet Committee on Security. Most recently, of course, Sushma Swaraj was joined by Nirmala Sitharaman in that important group, and they've also got 2 women in the BJP Central Election Body. Now, how does the Congress match up to this? Well, the Congress has only, again, like the BJP has only 2, the Congress has only 3 women in the working committee, and of course, with the invitees, it comes to about 6 as well. So in these decision-making bodies, you have very few women, and no wonder when you saw, if you can show the shots of the all-party meeting which happened before this session started earlier this week, there was only 1 woman that could be seen in those pictures. It just said a lot when all the ministers, when all the politicians got together there to discuss what to decide. There was only 1 woman, that's Anupriya Patel, also, who's seen in that. So, Shaina NC, it's a different thing talking about empowering women. It's a different thing talking about having a woman speaker there. Having a woman speaker is something that the UPA also did, and that's what the NDA has also done. But when it really matters about taking decisions, how come you, like the Congress, have only a lone or maybe 2 women there, and it's a majority of men making those decisions?
No, I don't agree. See, we have from a woman speaker to the first ever defense minister to several women chief ministers, to the fact that you have Sushma Swaraj in the parliamentary board. You have a 33% reservation within the organization to have women in positions of organizational work within the party, which is mandatory. So that happens state-wise. And that's why I said, I mean, you know, areas where women were never even given opportunity, like me being the treasurer of Maharashtra, is in itself something that the party has given us as an opportunity. So I disagree totally. I think that yes, a lot of work needs to be done when it comes to elections, because we see that women either get minimal seats, or then it is a tokenism of maybe a seat where you may not necessarily have a high probability of winning, or then nominated posts. So yes, as far as elections are concerned, we need a lot of introspection to do across the board. But coming back to the first point, don't forget that Prime Minister Modi, for the first time in the history of India, brought up triple talaq, which should have been done long back.
No, we'll talk about the triple talaq in just a bit. That's about laws which empower women. We'll talk about that in just a bit. I want to stick to the question I raised. Shaina NC, let's not digress over here. Let's stick to what we raised.
From the opposition for all 3 is empowerment for women.
I don't want to cut you off, but you're digressing. So I'm just going to cut you short over there. If we talk about this, it's an interesting point that Shaina NC also brought up, and that had to do with the first yardstick as well. And you, of course, have made it to the CWC. Congratulations on that, as being the president of the Mahila Congress over here. So this is something that pertains to you. I just wonder if you could be frank about this, Sushmita Dev. How it is difficult for women to be in those decision-making bodies, especially even in the UPA, we saw women in roles like Women and Child Development Minister or Health Ministry, some of these positions which are roles associated with women.
See, Sunitra, the entire problem of women in governance, it cuts across fields. Please look at the judiciary, okay? Look at the boards of big companies. Although there is a law that we passed saying at least one woman on the board. Clearly, there's a need to make a change. Okay, whenever you bring a social reform, it's never easy. When the 73rd and the 74th Amendment was brought, there was a lot of people talking against it. Anyway, it went through. When the Women's Reservation Bill was launched, was introduced in the Rajya Sabha in 2010, 9th of March it was passed, Arun Jaitley ji debated, and BJP and Congress actually stood together. It's not like we haven't done it before for the Women's Reservation Bill.
So here's what I want to ask you. Why can't you, instead of asking for this legislation of having 33%, why can't you start giving more tickets to women yourself?
There is a practical reason
because
for it.
Because these figures are abysmal. In Karnataka, you only gave 15 out of 224. Okay. You only gave 10 out of 182 in Gujarat. In UP, you only gave 11. Look at this figure. You read
the figures before.
11 out of 403.
Don't worry, I'm not about to defend that, if you'd let me speak.
Okay.
It's very simple. What is the reality of politics? It's very competitive, right? Today, for instance, Mahua is standing tall in this debate because of the amount of women that are sitting in parliament from Trinamool
That's
Congress.
right, yeah.
But that's because they won and they came and they gave that many tickets. But unless there is reservation and a woman is not contesting against another woman, you cannot ensure that that number of women come into the Lok Sabha. And let's face it, it's a challenge because politics is so competitive that even the top leaders, despite their intentions may be very good, it doesn't culminate into reality. That's why the need for affirmative action.
That's an interesting idea. Mahua Moitra, do you think that in some places, because I've been speaking to people, when we were reporting on those elections, many people just say, look, I'm just thinking of winnability over here. I don't want to be politically correct. I want to talk about who's the best person in that region to win. And sometimes they are more men. Now, is that, for a political party, is that the real problematic situation?
You see, that's very true, and what Sushmita said is absolutely correct, because I've been in the Congress, and this is a reality not just for it's a reality not just for India but for many other countries as well, and this is the issue. So you have politics like politics is like, I would say, the last bastion of patriarchy. Frankly, it's probably the most difficult for women to have a level playing field, unless you come from a very political family or there is some kind of extraneous circumstances. All things being equal, it is far more difficult for a woman to rise to being an elected representative than it is for a man in our system in India. And I speak from personal experience, and I'm sure Sushmita and a lot of others will agree with me. This is a fact. There's no getting away from it. So yes, for example, Mamata Banerjee is she's the leader of our party. She happens to be a woman, and the way our party is set up, if she decides that I will give it to X number of women, we give it to X number of women. But if you are looking at other parties all over India, everyone comes with their own set of realities. And like you said, winnability, and unfortunately we always fall back on this, I would say, the lowest common denominator, where sometimes you give it to people with criminal records, you give it to people with muscle power, because you think of winnability and you're not always thinking of doing the right thing. So I think from where we are starting in India, I do think the idea of reservation, where you're going to have women fighting against women, and that's another debate altogether, is that is a woman not good enough to fight against a man in a normal seat? Do we have to have separate seats where women fight against women? But I agree with Sushmita in that initially, to get us to a level playing field, I mean, it's like affirmative action. You have to get to a level playing field, and to get to that level playing field, we definitely need a reservation where people are forced. I mean, you saw that in Norway, where people came in and they said 50% board reservation for women, and they did it.
Yes.
And in India, unfortunately, I have seen it. Unless you make a law and bill to do it, nobody seems to want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like child marriage. Everyone knows it's not the right thing to do, but unless you say we are going to prosecute you and do X and do Y, people will still get children married at 15. So I think from that point of view, we
And you know
definitely
what,
need the law. Yes,
Mahua,
our party has been able
before
to
I
put
end
in
the show,
33%
I'm going
or
to do a
35%.
quick...
But for a lot of other parties, without the law on the table, I think it's going to be very difficult. So I agree with Sushmita wholeheartedly that we do need to have this in to make sure that there is a law in place and that people use that to at least create a level playing field.
Okay, and before...
Because not always do people do the right thing if there is not a stick hanging over them.
Sure. I just want to take in the third yardstick which we looked at as looking at which were the more enabling laws that governments brought in. And we've this is not an exhaustive list, it's just just to give you an inkling of it. So if you look at NDA, what are the enabling legislation or women-friendly laws that they brought in? Well, they increased maternity benefits, they gave more maternity leave, that was in 2016, they introduced the triple talaq bill, and of course, they were the ones who initiated that kind of reform by giving that opinion in Supreme Court, and they also had the National Draft Policy for Women Empowerment in 2017. What did the UPA do? Well, the UPA had the Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act, which is the landmark one, which set up that body to help women at the workplace, the Domestic Violence Bill of 2005, the Hindu Succession Act, which gave equal rights for women in inherited property. So both sides have done good. What I want to ask you, of course, Shaina NC, is that one of the things, you know, everyone's talking about how it helps to have reservation. One of the first legislations to be brought in was, of course, the Panchayat reservation panchayat thing. Now, when we go out as reporters in the field, we sometimes see the kind of, you know, the fallout of that in some places, a lot of women have been empowered, but in some places, it's the, you know, her husband, that they are sometimes proxy candidates. Is that experiment the one which sends out the wrong signal, or what has gone wrong? Why is it that that is the BJP with its majority numbers, can't team up because this is something, as Sushmita said, this is something which is in your manifesto. What's stopping the BJP from just passing this thing which has been pending for so long?
Firstly, let me please say that I completely agree with what Mahua said and what Sushmita ji said as well. So I'm not going to repeat those points, but I do think somewhere that yes, when you talk about, you know, proxy candidates where women are filling in for the men, if you look at the Panchayati Raj, but I think that could also happen with women's reservation, but that should not be a reason to not have women's reservation. At least the stepping stone to start, and to start somewhere. Inevitably what happens is that you expect your party to give much more tickets, but there is no hard and fast rule to say that you have to give 33% to women, which is a starting point. So that being put aside in a male dominated space where men are anyway so threatened of women entering this zone, if you do not have women's reservation, you will never be able to fight these multiple challenges. And to fight it, you have to ensure that even at the cost of certain families, you know, putting forward their wives or their daughter-in-laws or daughters or whatever, being a prerogative to so-called win the constituency, that could be an initial lacuna in the system, but eventually women do excel no matter where they are. I mean, there's so many tall examples in our democracy across the board, every political party, every state. So I think it's just a question of that initial opportunity to show that we are there, we are conscientious, we're performers, we're doers, and then to do away with all these stereotypical thought processes that what is the caste combination, or who is this from which family, or what is the lineage, or what is the winnability.
Okay, Sushmita Dev, final point. I've read out all these acts that the UPA passed as well, as opposed to the NDA. Do you think that what you could also add in this is, you know, that you got together with the NDA and brought in this, and also perhaps the triple talaq one?
See, triple talaq, I know it's repeatedly coming up, and I'd like to put it on record again
that you are supporting.
The amendments that we've moved are progressive, and there's no reason why the government should deny it. Having said that, I think to say that women's reservation is going to be pitched against triple talaq is not unfair to me, it's unfair to the women of India. And it's also a little surprising that the National Policy for Women 2016, which has been finalized by the Women and Child Development Minister, I'm in the consultative committee, is lying pending at the Prime Minister's office for more than 1 year.
And how does it propose to change our lives?
And what is in that policy is reiterating that 33% reservation for women should be brought in.
Okay.
There should be greater push to put women into judiciary and the corporate sector.
You know, we're totally out of time, so there's only a one-line answer we can take from you, Mahua. Do you see the women's reservation bill being passed in Parliament in this session, or not in this session, before 2019?
Well, I think for it to pass, I mean, you notice as much as I do, for it to pass before 2019, we've got to move very quickly on it. The bill has lapsed, so a new bill has to be brought in. I think it's unlikely, but I do hope that I think there's nothing we can't do if everyone gets together to do it. So if all major parties decide to do it, I don't see a reason why they shouldn't. But I mean, it does seem a trifle impossible now, given that we've just got about 9 months to go before the election.
Well, we're totally out of time, but I just want to thank our guests. It's always great hearing women politicians, and you know, we heard really three strong
politicians
ones.
Next time.
We should do that as well. Perhaps it will be a longer one, a much more argumentative one. Shaina NC, Smita Dev, Mahua Moitra, thanks very much. And of course, to wind up, we hope that we presented to you all of the initiatives that all three parties and other political parties have taken. Now it's for you to decide who's come out on top when it comes to empowering women. That's it on Reality Check. We'll be back again tomorrow. Join us then. Goodbye.